All right, welcome back to ABA exam review in our latest RBT exam practice series. Today we're going through the next set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our famous combo pack. As always, when you pass, let us know so we can include you in our Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Joanna is a good student who is attentive during class. When she gets home after homework, she sits in her room for 10 minutes meditating. The most likely function of meditating is what? One thing to remember about the exam is you can only work with the information you're given. With that said, we're not adding any information either. So we don't want to make a lot of assumptions. We don't want to presume anything. And you want to be careful about drawing from your own experiences. The test really just wants you to analyze just the information given and pick the best choice. You don't want to sit there and argue with the question or the information given. You just got to do your best to answer the question at hand. In this case, it's a function question, and function questions are hard because to really identify the function, it's a multi-step process. It's an intense process. Here, we have a couple sentences, and you just got to hypothesize or guess what you think the function is. And that's how function questions are most likely going to look a lot of the time. So in this case, we know Joanna is a good student who is attentive during class. Well, that's fine, but what behavior are we looking at? We're looking at meditating. So when she gets home, after homework, she sits in her room for 10 minutes meditating. So you have to ask yourself, what do we know about this behavior? Why could it possibly be occurring? First, ask yourself, is she trying to gain a tangible, an item? Well, no, there's no tangible in play at any point during this question. What about attention? Is she trying to gain attention? Well, she's sitting alone in her room, or she's sitting in her room for 10 minutes meditating. There's nobody else in the picture, according to the question. So it's not like she's seeking out the attention of anybody in particular. What about escape? Well, she's already done with homework. So she chose to do this after her homework is done. So escape, we're really with the only other function with maybe some information pointing to it, we can probably rule that out because she's already done with homework. So she voluntarily goes in her room and chooses to do this by herself, apparently. So since she's voluntarily doing this by herself, not trying to get a tangible, not trying to get attention, not escaping from anything, the most likely function is going to be automatic. You know, the dead giveaway for automatic or sensory, they're interchangeable now, is the fact that it's happening alone. If there's no other person involved, it's typically going to be some sort of automatic function. And since we can only pick one function, you have to select automatic because there's nobody else involved. It's just Joanna. A session note says, the client stood with both feet on his chair and started to swing his shirt around his head in a circle repeatedly. This note is describing what? All right, what's the question asking? About the note and what the note is describing. Let's read the note again. It says the client stood with both feet on his chair and started to swing his shirt around his head in a circle repeatedly. What's clearly describing a behavior, one instance of behavior, so it's describing a response, but they're going to want more specific than that. So are we looking at topography, function, magnitude? Well, we know it's not function, and why? Because nowhere in the description do we have any identification of a possible cause. All we know is the client stood on his chair and swung his shirt around. We don't know why. There's no indication of what that function might be. We do know what it looks like, and it's a good description of what it looks like. So when we describe behavior by what it looks like, we consider that what? Well, A, topography. And then magnitude is the intensity or the speed or the size. We don't know anything about the magnitude of the swinging or the standing. We just know what it looks like. And when you know what it looks like, and when you describe what something looks like, you're describing the topography. Now, C, subjective events. Is this subjective? Well, if it's not subjective, that would make it objective. And we want our session notes to be objective because objective means what we've actually observed. It isn't our opinion. It's a fact, right? Subjective is based on opinion, based on what you believe you saw or what you think happened. Objective is what you saw and what happened. This session note is very objective. Anybody can picture this. It's exactly what happened. So it wasn't subjective. So it's not both A and C. The note is simply describing a topography. Conference presentations are from 9:50 until 11:20 a.m., 11:40 a.m. until 2:10 p.m., and 2:30 p.m. until 5 p.m. If conference presentations were responses, what would the inter-response time, or IRT, be for the second and third conference? Straightforward, continuous measurement question. We've got our conferences, we've got our times. What are we measuring? What type of measurement are we using, should I say? Well, IRT, inter-response time. IRT represents time in between responses. We're treating conference presentations as if they were responses. So how many responses do we have? Well, we've got 1, we've got 2, we've got 3. What responses are we looking at specifically? Well, second and third. So let's focus on 11:40 until 2:10, 2:30 until 5. Now, we're looking at IRT, so time in between responses. We're not worried about the length of the conferences, the 11:40 until 2:10 or 2:30 until 5. We're worried about time in between those conferences. So when you're looking at IRT, you're looking at how much time has passed from the end of one response to the beginning of the next. So the second response ends at 2:10. The third response begins at 2:30. So how much time has passed? Well, A, 20 minutes. Total inter-response time would be 60 because we've got 1 and 2 is 20, 2 and 3 is 20, right? Well, actually, it would be 40, right? Because between 1 and 2 is 20, and between 2 and 3 is 20. So total inter-response time would be 40. Average inter-response time would be 20. But we're just looking at for second and third conference. So 2:10 to 2:30, the end of one, start of the next, 20 minutes elapsed. Now, that's a pretty straightforward inter-response time question, disguised as a little more challenging because you've got to be very careful about, 1, what responses are you looking at? And 2, what are we trying to measure? If you can do that, pretty straightforward. So inter-response time would be 20 minutes. An errorless learning procedure will be the typical start of what type of prompting procedure? I get a lot of questions about errorless learning. I think people really overcomplicate it. What does errorless learning sound like to you? Sounds like we're teaching without errors, because that's exactly what it is. Errorless learning is the most intrusive type of prompting we can do because we're preventing all errors from happening. Errorless learning, no errors are allowed to happen. Because we know, as you teach and as mistakes are made, mistakes lead to more mistakes. Mistakes become part of the behavior chains. Mistakes can become SDs. A lot of bad things can happen with mistakes. When we're using an errorless learning procedure, we're preventing errors from happening. We don't allow them to happen. So if we're going to use an errorless learning procedure, preventing all errors from happening, what type of prompting procedure would that be? Well, it wouldn't be A, least to most. Least to most would be the less intrusive, right? And the start of a least to most is no prompt. So it's going to be most to least. This is the most intrusive prompt you can have. Errorless learning, you're preventing any error from happening. You're not even allowing them to engage in the response to the point where they can make an error. Prompt assessment, no, we're not trying to determine the type of prompt. We know what we're trying to use. And then graduated guidance. Graduated guidance is a type of physical prompting, but it's less intrusive because you only prompt as needed and you fade immediately. Errorless learning is the most intrusive prompt there is. It would be the typical start of a most to least procedure. Management inspects a block of rooms every morning after housekeeping is finished cleaning the rooms. Management uses a list to inspect different aspects of the room and then grades the housekeepers based on the results. What type of measurement is management using? So we've got to look at management and what they're measuring, right? Always start with what the question is asking about management and what they're measuring. We know management inspects a block of rooms every morning after housekeeping is finished, okay, cleaning the rooms. Management uses a list to inspect different aspects of the room and then grades the housekeepers based on the results. So what's management doing? Well, they're coming in after housekeeping is done. They've already done the behavior. They've done because you can't watch all 500 housekeepers or 500 rooms, right? Or however many housekeepers you have. All you can do is come in afterwards, use your list, inspect it, and grade it. So what kind of measurement is that? A, interview assessments. Are they interviewing the housekeepers? No, there's no mention of interviews here. B, frequency. Are they counting anything? Is there any count? Well, we don't know what that list looks like, but based on the information given, there's not. So it's not frequency. C, permanent product. Well, they're not observing the behavior occurring. They're coming in after and looking at the product of the behavior. To me, that sounds exactly like permanent product. And then ABC narrative recording. Are they recording antecedents and consequences based on what they observe? No. Simply letting the housekeepers do their job, coming in afterwards, measuring the product or the outcome of the behavior, and then evaluating from there. Type of measurement management is using is C, permanent product. Which of the following choices is the best example of negative reinforcement? Okay, negative reinforcement is probably the most misunderstood term in ABA because historically it's been used to denote something negative, right? Trying to prevent something. But we know reinforcement does what? Reinforcement increases behavior. So when we're looking at negative reinforcement, we're looking for consequences that increase behavior by taking away something. So A, Grayson eats his macaroni and cheese with his hands. His mom takes away his mac and cheese. Negative. Grayson stops eating with his hands. Decrease. Can't be it, right? Because if the behavior decreased, it's not reinforcement. This is how you go through these questions. B, Lisa is sleeping in her hotel room, is blinded by the city lights. She closes the curtains tighter. Negative, right? Takes away the light. The next night, she closes the curtains tight. When the lights were bright, behavior increased. Okay. She took away the light. The light was taken away, right? Or removed. Negative. Behavior increased. Reinforcement. B looks pretty good. C, Jimmy steps on a nail and screams in pain. This is just a simple response consequence, right? An antecedent response. Okay. We don't know anything about future behavior, so we can't say for sure. D, Blaine helps out his sister, so his mom gives him $1. Blaine helps more in the future. Give $1 is positive reinforcement, right? Increase. B is the only one that fits. Lisa sleeps in her hotel room, blinded by city lights, closes curtains tighter, removing lights. In the future, continues to close curtains tight. Answer is B, negative reinforcement. After several trials of saying clap your hands and delivering praise for clapping hands, Jason now consistently claps his hands when told, clap your hands. Clap your hands now functions as a what? All right. Why has clap your hands changed? Why has it now obtained some power over behavior? Well, because in its presence, it's been reinforced, right? We say clap your hands, hands are clapped, praise is delivered. So in the presence of clap your hands, reinforcement's delivered. Eventually, clap your hands is going to signal that reinforcement is available. And when we create a stimulus that now signals reinforcement is available, what does it function as? A, discriminative stimulus. Yes, it's now an SD. That's how SDs are created. In the presence of that stimulus, a behavior is reinforced enough times to where that stimulus signals reinforcement is available. Stimulus delta means reinforcement is not available. It is not a stimulus delta. SD for punishment. Is clap your hands signaling punishment is available? No, it's signaling praise and the reinforcement is available. Cannot determine. Well, we can. We know clap your hands now have stimulus control over clapping hands because in the past, clapping hands has been reinforced in the presence of clap your hands. So in the future, clap your hands will occur once clap your hands is said because reinforcement is available. Listen to that a few times. Understand how SDs get their properties. Why do they function like they do? Okay. A father takes his son to a NASCAR race and tells him to watch how fast all the cars move. Son then goes home and watches a cheetah on TV and says, wow, look how fast. The son demonstrated what? Classic response, generalization, stimulus, generalization, question. Always difficult for new trainees, always difficult, even for seasoned people. How do we distinguish between response generalization and stimulus generalization? Well, ask yourself, how many stimuli are there? Well, we've got a NASCAR race in the cars, and then we go see a cheetah, right? So we've got cars moving fast, cheetahs moving fast, two different stimuli. What's the response? Wow, look how fast. We have one response. So are we generalizing responses? Well, no, because it's just the same response over and over again. What's happening is that response is generalizing across stimuli. And that's where it can get a little confusing at first. Response generalization doesn't mean we're generalizing a single response. Response generalization means new responses are occurring. Stimulus generalization means we have a response, which then generalizes across different stimuli. You've got to understand that difference, right? Stimulus generalization, you've got a single response generalizing across different stimuli. Excellent. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. RBT Combo Pack available now. As always, let us know when you pass so we can include you in the Sunday shutout. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.